The Titanic's tragic end has captured imaginations worldwide for over a century. But there's one moment at the heart of the mystery: the ship's violent breakup. Was it an inevitable failure of engineering, or something far more complex? We're about to dive into this iconic disaster and unravel why Titanic split in two that fateful night. Eyewitness testimonies from survivors create a tangled web of conflicting stories. Some claimed they saw the ship break apart, while others, including senior officers, swore it sank intact. The discrepancies raise intriguing questions. Was there a cover-up to protect reputations? Or did the chaos of that freezing night cause confusion in the survivors' memories? The truth might be far murkier than we think. The wreck site, discovered in 1985, gave us the clearest evidence yet. Titanic's remains lie in two massive sections, with a haunting debris field between them. But one thing is conspicuously missing: a 100-foot section of the ship. What happened to it? Was it obliterated by the forces at play when the ship broke apart, or did something else cause its disappearance? To understand this, we need to go deeper into Titanic's engineering. Although she was a marvel of early 20th century shipbuilding, Titanic had structural flaws that made her more vulnerable than we'd like to think. The ship's design, while innovative, left critical weak points, such as massive ventilation shafts and fragile engine casings. These areas would buckle under stress, adding to Titanic's catastrophic fate. The way her hull was constructed, using high-quality steel at the time, wasn't enough to withstand the immense forces she encountered that night. But this wasn't just bad luck. Titanic's hull acted like a giant lever when the bow hit the ocean. The weight of the bow plunged deep into the water while the stern was pulled upward, creating immense tension on the ship's steel structure. Around a 20 to 25 degree angle, Titanic's hull simply couldn't take the stress any longer. The bottom of the hull compressed, while the upper decks stretched and tore apart. This unimaginable force ultimately led to the ship's breakup, splitting her in two. If you look closely at the wreckage, you can see the mangled steel beams and twisted joints, some bent like wet cardboard. But what made Titanic's breakup so unique? There were other ships throughout history that met similar fates, like the RMS Magdalena in 1948, which also broke apart when the ship's structural limits were tested. The SS Pendleton, too, shattered under stress, and the same thing happened to the Shenandoah, which even broke apart while docked. However, none of these events reached the level of iconic violence that Titanic's split did. Titanic's breakup wasn't just sudden, it was brutal, a thunderous collapse that sent the bow and stern tumbling to the ocean floor. There was no graceful descent. The forces Titanic endured that night were far greater than what most ships would face, and her size, combined with the materials used in her construction, sealed her fate. What makes Titanic's breakup especially haunting is that she wasn't built with modern materials. Today's ships are constructed with ultra-tough steel and advanced engineering designed to handle immense pressure. Titanic's steel, while the best of its time, was vulnerable to the freezing temperatures of the North Atlantic, causing it to become brittle. This, combined with the weight of the bow pulling the stern up, created the perfect storm of destruction. The steel of Titanic wasn't just weak in comparison to modern ships. It was weak by the standards of the time when it came to such extreme conditions. The iron rivets used in her construction were especially fragile, and the impurities in her steel made it more prone to cracking under stress. As the ship went down, the immense pressure caused the steel to snap and fracture, making the breakup inevitable. It wasn't just the iceberg that caused Titanic's disaster. It was the combination of a design that couldn't withstand the forces at play, the brutal impact with the iceberg, and the freezing temperatures that made her steel brittle. As we look at Titanic's fate, we can draw comparisons to other ships that have suffered similar fates, but none had the same level of notoriety or dramatic breakup. Titanic's violent end was not only a failure of engineering, but also of the limits of human ambition. The ship was a symbol of human progress, an unsinkable marvel of modernity, but in the end, it was undone by a combination of human error, design flaws, and the relentless forces of nature. In the end, Titanic's fate serves as a brutal reminder. No matter how grand our creations, nature will always have the final say. The catastrophic breakup wasn't just about a ship sinking. It was about the limits of what humanity could achieve, and how even the most powerful vessels can be torn apart by forces too great to control. As we explore Titanic's wreckage, the final haunting images of her split hull, twisted and torn apart, leave us with a chilling sense of what really happened that night. Titanic wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of an era's pride in the human spirit. But when it split apart, it showed us how fragile even the mightiest creations can be.